Good morning, my fellow gamers and gamettes. I hope everybody's doing good. I hope you're looking forward to another episode of GM Tips. You got a little different perspective than my normal table. I'm sitting out on the couch just because my back's killing me a little bit this morning, my lower back. But I want to comment today on epic sessions because you can have epic sessions. And don't mind the little Einsteins in the back. Like I say, many GMs watching that right now while I'm talking with you guys. So epic moments in GMing and gaming, and I think you got to have those every so often in a session. And yesterday, I got to say, was for me probably one of my best times GMing in my whole life. And I don't say that lightly because, as you know, GMing has its really wonderful, memorable moments of story play and great things going on. And if you're a young GM, just know these times will come and you will build to them. And when you get them, they are some of the most wonderful reasons why you run a game in your whole life. And I'm going to hit a couple points that I think from the game and then explain from what happened yesterday. And again, this is a Pathfinder game, but you can pick D&D, you can pick Numenera, you can pick 13th Realm, I think it is, or you can pick one of the other sci-fi title games. You can pick fantasy games. You can pick things like Mutants and Masterminds. They all have these type of moments and mechanics to them. So as we go through it, please don't just limit it to the one. You can use it in any system you play. So let's follow, and again, I keep going back to Evil Squeegee, and I'm going to keep giving him props because I think this is something that every GM should learn to do, is the number one, goal of the party. Pick a goal that will draw your party in. In this case, mine are trying to prevent the world from turning into a frozen wonderland, okay, in the adventure path they're in. And I've modified it a lot, so it's not all just the original content of the path that Pathfinder wrote, but there's a lot of modifications. Number two, you got to have the obstacles for the party. If you don't have obstacles for your party that are fun and challenging, then your party will never, ever, ever have the kind of fun moments that you really want them to have. And then the best part is the character. What will the character do, and what type of character is there, and how will they react? And then their attempt at trying to reach the goal. So yesterday, they're in a city, a sleepy, frozen snow town, okay? And the goal there is to get there, try to find out what's going on, get their bearings, and get to the main capital of Winterthrone. And then try to, they're under a geas right now, from one of the writers of Baba Yaga, and they're trying to get to find her to save the world from being frozen over. And so along the way, they come to this sleepy town, and all these villagers come out, and they're just meeting them, and some are really happy they're there and want to trade with them. Most of them are real cautious because, again, they've been ruled by tyrants, and so they don't know what to trust and what will bring down the worst of the worst on them. And so the party gets everything together. One of the characters, and I love him, it's a rogue named Painbin. He goes off on his own. Now, GMs, I know a lot of times you don't want the party to split up. I'm going to tell you right now, let them split up. As long as they're not 500 different directions and they're all in the same vicinity, it's okay to let them split a little bit. So I let him split off on his own while the other ones are going and buying supplies, getting magic items, trading magic items, and the limited resources of the town. Well, lo and behold, Painbin goes into the bar, meets the barkeeper, Emil and Katrina. They are wanting him to get out of town because they know the type of bad things that are going to come. Plus, they're snitches to one of the witches' lieutenants in the area. And so Katrina brews him up a nice pot of tea because he's cold, and the elf likes his tea, and so the half elf. And so Paimon gets this mug of tea, And I love Max because he always writes his characters with one Achilles heel on them. He upped the perception and the wisdom on this guy this time, so he's a better rogue, but he sacrificed his fortitude. And so he takes a drink, fails his fortitude save, and away comes the fun. And so they told him, you know what, you and the party should leave town now. And in fact, you guys should head on your way because it's not safe to stay here. And in fact, it's not safe for us either that you're here. Now, fortunately, he has the NPC sprite, Remily, sitting on his shoulder. Because she's the one that kind of saves his butt a little bit. Because she doesn't drink the tea, and she's not always that obvious. She's sitting there invisible on his shoulder. And away Max goes, and Painvin running, and I love it. He role plays this so wonderfully. And this tells you when you got great players that really know their characters. He doesn't get upset with what happens. He rolls his eyes and goes, oh, geez, I blew my save. And he plays it out. He goes up to the party and says, guys, we got to go. We got to go now. It's not safe here. The Pale Guard's going to come from the tower, and they're going to arrest us. So it's not safe. And so the party kind of poo-poos, and they're good friends with one of the hunters in the town, Nadia, and they're going to go stay at her house because of all the good things they've done. And so the party gets there, meets Grandma, which I call Baba, and they figured out Baba Yaga. And they actually have this epic moment of sitting there, getting to know the family, having some drinks, while Max is freaking out. Finally, the paladin says, what's going on here, Painvin? Why are you freaking out? And there comes Remily off his shoulder, come invisible, going, well, let me tell you all about it. There was these people, and they gave him some tea, and he was okay before the tea, but after the tea, he wanted to go. They wanted him to go. And so she's babbling away, and Painvin's like, no, that is not how it happened, because he doesn't remember. And so the party's getting the idea, okay, he's a little bit weirded out. So they're like, well, you know, what if the Pale Guard does come here to the town and finds us? We're going to get hauled away in chains, or we're going to have to fight them. So they turn to the rogue, and I love it, because this is an idea from Damien the Sorcerer and from the Paladin, Rothar. They said, what if we forge papers saying we are diplomats, and we should be here, and we should be okay, and it comes from the Queen of Winterthrone. And all of a sudden, Max's character starts liking the idea, because he's a liar, and a spy, and a skulk. And so they're playing on his base emotions. Now, a lot of GMs would say, well, no, he's under a compulsion, so he's got to act it out. What does Max do? And see, this is the great part of the story, and the characters doing not what you think. Basically, he says, okay, I want to go, but papers are a smart idea. He's a self-preservationist. So he's thinking, okay, maybe I can forge these and still leave all in the same night, because we're going to leave tonight. And he tells them that we're still leaving, but I'll forge the papers. But what's going on while he's doing this? The tea is wearing off. It has a number of hours of effect. And see, when you're writing a forgery, you're not going to rush it, because you know that's your life too. It's self-preservation. So self-preservation kind of counters a little bit of the suggestion of the tea. And so this is the thing where you got to let things go a little bit out of the lines, GMs. And I'm not saying you have to follow what I did, but because I took that little bit of, rope and let him have a little rope, he makes an epic roll of a 19. Plus he's aided by 2 of the people with high diplomacies. And so, or bluffs. And so the sorcerer's bluff is ungodly. I mean, he's really pumped a lot into it. He's not the most offensive sorcerer. He's the little lecherous guy who hits on all the women and is a ladies' man. And I love his character. He could be a man or a woman being, going after the men. It's all fun and games when you have a fun character. So they're able to get, with a roll of a 32, forged papers that use some linguistics, some bluff, some of the other things. And oh, by the way, the rogue has just learned Skald, the language of that area. And he hasn't let on to the party he knows until that point. And so he's writing names, he's writing it all on Scald, so it's looking really legit. And so about that time comes a knock on the door. Now, the self-preservation suggestion has worn off on the road. So Max feeling a little salty about what's happened to him. Nadja's like, we got to answer the door of the NPC, the war priest. We got an Aasimar war priest, just give you a little more fill-in, and an Aasimar cleric of Sarenrae. Well, the war priest wants to do his usual thing of let's go cut it in two. And I love Scott, but he's playing his character, the superhero kind of guy. He's Kal-El is his name, so it gives you no idea of where he's going with it. He's protector of the innocent. I will deal with evil. I will work things out, and by God, I'll use my sword to do it and my might. The other Aasimar priest of Sarenrae is a healer. So he battles, but his whole thing in life is I will heal the party. Well, both of them are out of their element. They both want to go do something offensive, and Max is like, hold it. And so, Damien and the paladin of Cade and Kaleen said, okay, let's listen to what Painvin's going to do on this one. And Rothar's the paladin, and Damien's the sorcerer. So up walks, with one other help, the Painvin the rogue. Now, mind you, there's some other parts of the story I haven't filled in because I don't want to give away this whole adventure to you guys. But I want to show you some great aspects. So, Painvin basically opens the door with Nadja, and he's behind her. And so the sergeant, who Nadja knows, she goes, "What are you doing here? Why are you bothering me?" He goes, "Nadja, you little miscreant. We're going to take you and these away. Why are you harboring bad people? We've been told from good sources that you have people here that should not be here. We need to search the house." And he's there with 6 of his men. And he's ready to go full bore and either drag these guys in for torture or kill them. Whichever way, no big deal. The Winter Witches will be happy with it. Painvin puffs up, moves Nadja out of the way, and says, "What do you think you are doing? How dare you come question things?" And so the sergeant's like, "Well, who do you think you are?" "Who am I? I'm a diplomat on special assignment here by your queen to come meet and treat and do all these things." And he whips up this patent and puts it in his hand. And I roll, and the guy rolls a 5. And so he's looking at this going, oh crap, what have I just stepped into? So the sergeant is trying to redeem himself here. And so, Max is throwing on the tirade. He is like, "I will have your stripes. What is your name? I will go to your captain, and then I'll go above her. I will take it to the leader of Horwood, and then I will go to Winterfell, and I will make sure every one of you gets the kind of treatment you need for treating us so shoddily." Oh Lord! Now the sergeant's starting to get a little fearful. I said, "Max," and Max rolls. And he rolls a natural 20 for his bluff. And I'm like, take it away, Max. Because I told him, I said, you roll 1s or 20s, you guys get to tell me what happens. And he does. And it's a great rule, folks. Let me tell you something. Even though with combat, you may have the cards for criticals or whatever, please let your players tell you what happens when they make those rolls. Because it is some of the best friggin' role play ever. And so Max goes into this 5-minute tirade with Painvin, his rogue, telling him how bad they are, how irresponsible that sergeant is, how he is going to get demoted, how he will have his stripes and everything else. And the Pale Tower guards behind the sergeant, and I'm running them out a little bit. I said, okay, he listens to everything you just said. The Pale Tower guards behind him are trying not to snicker at watching their evil sergeant being just berated beyond all belief. The sergeant, I said, you see emotions going across his face. He goes from angry to fearful to a little bit angry again to quizzical to I said, it's just a litany of emotions going across his face. And finally I go, well, fine. Well, what are you doing here? Why didn't you come the normal way through the portals? And he goes, how dare you question how I come? How I come and the things are the business of myself and your queen. Oh, Lord, at that point, the sergeant is just beside himself. He is stammering and stuttering, but what is normally this evil, very forceful sergeant has now been dressed down 100%. He's totally demoralized. Max rolls again another just 18 roll with his modifiers. This guy has got negatives now because he's just so flustered. He rolls a 3. He is just totally out of his element. And he goes, well, fine. Well, do me a favor. You need to check into the tower. You need to come talk to Captain Helga. Key information. And let her know you're here, so that way I don't get in trouble. And you need to see Radveer, who's in charge of the tower right now. Again, key information. Because he's lost it. He doesn't know he's giving away key information. He just knows that he is beside himself and that things are going south. And so this sergeant has now given him information. And that's the kind of things as a GM you got to think about. As a blown roll, what would your NPC give away that normally they wouldn't give away in the story? Now, you don't want to give away too much, but you definitely want to let them make mistakes because they're going to, especially with an epic roll as a natural 20 in the first bluff. He's already got control of the situation. The NPC has none. Now, mind you, normally I'll tell you something about this. In the way this is written and in the way I interpreted it as a GM, this is a combat situation. How has the rogue handled it? And this comes to the character and the attempt. He's totally taken any part of the story I was planning for and just thrown it out the window. So now I'm improvising as a GM. And see, that's the best part of GM. Now you get to be something other than the written story. Now you get to really act out the NPCs. And this is epic. I want to make sure these guys remember this one for 5 to 6 sessions. So they have dressed down this guy. He's flustered. Finally, he just quits stammering and goes, okay, fine, I'll see you there. And he goes, go, all of you. And he's out there with his men, and he's trying to get his composure back. And, of course, the men are trying not to laugh at him. And so he goes, we're leaving now. And in fact, we're going to go talk to Emil and Katrina about their little bit of misinformation. Again, he gives away another thing to the party. Emil and Katrina, the innkeepers at the White Weasel, have given them away. So now Max is mad. See, Penguin has been tricked by them, given something to tell him to leave town. And now he knows, who did this. So he is madder than a hornet. So what is he going to do? He's going to deal with things. Now the party's ready to go to the White Towers. They're watching the sergeant and his men go away. And now they're going to plan a little bit. And one of the house spirits, a double boy, basically he used to be somebody who was in somewhere key. So he gives him some information because of how well they protect Nadia and the house. So see, there's so many factors here. And I award them full experience as if they defeated them in combat. Plus, I give the rogue an extra 250 XP points. Now, mind you, this is a low-level portion of the adventure. They're about 3rd level, 4th level. But to him, that's just epic. He has now set the pace. And the others are just smiling and laughing, and they're getting ready. And don't get me wrong, there's other great character play. They're prepping to go to this place. So they're trying to get everything together. They're getting all their supplies. They're thinking outside the box. They see Baba's alcohol. And she gets him drunk that night because it's so much fun that what they did. She said, you know what? You saved my granddaughter-in-law, and I love you guys, and you've protected the children's mother, so I'm breaking out the good stuff. So she brings out her white lightning. Now, again, this is not written in the module, but I'm thinking about what would this village have for entertainment? And it's Baba, and Baba's been around for a while. So not Baba Yaga, but Baba, the mother, or the mother-in-law of this woman, who's son was slain, who she was married to. So Baba's taking care of it. This is her only family. And so these guys are her best heroes right now. So out comes the moonshine, and it's 150 proof. And everybody but Painman is drinking away. Painman's got some things going in his mind as a rogue right now. So one of the guys he's drinking is thinking, this is Damien, the sorcerer. He goes, what if we made Molotov cocktails? And then Oren, the Azimir priest of Samurai, is like, that would be a great idea. Molotov cocktails, if they've got some creatures that are vulnerable to fire and regenerate, that would be awesome. So I go look up Molotov cocktails. They don't have it in Pathfinder, but they do in D&D 3.5. And then I have to make a judgment call of where is it. Well, it's like the good ale. So it's going to be a D8 for each of these jars. And so the guys are excited. They're into this. They're like, okay, now we can have something we can just go to the tower with. The ice tower. And so they're excited. Well, Painman is still just really hacked off about Emil and Katrina. So he says, you know what we're going to do? What if we send them a little eviction notice from the tower that they need to get the heck out of town? And a party just lights up. They're laughing at this point. And at this point, I'm behind my GM screen laughing my rear end off. Because this is going great. This is going way off beaten tracks. This is not even part of the module or the path or any of it. But the role play and what the repercussions are, and the fact that they're saving this town from evil influences that would later on bring the White Tower, the Pale Tower, back on them again. Fine. And he goes, what was that captain's name? Oh, yeah, Helga. And so he starts putting it on there, and he writes it in this thing. And he tries to come up with the official things. He rolls a 19 to his forgery. Plus he has the guys helping him again. So another 33. So they go and they tack that, hammer it onto Emil and Katrina's door that night, then go back and Max drinks. And they're having a great time, so they don't remember anything after that. They wake up the next morning to commotion. Everybody's rushing to the town square. There are Emil and Katrina packing the horses and a wagon to leave. Why? Because I made a roll. They read the notice. They rolled a 7. And then the wife rolled, I think, like a 4. So they know they're not welcome here anymore by the Pale Tower. So they're not even going to question it. They're not going to go to the tower. They're not going to ask questions. Because why? People disappear who don't follow direct orders from the Winter Witches. They're leaving town griping about how this little podunk town, they hate it, and they're just going to go to Horwood and let these little hicks deal with their own thing. So some people are a little bit sad in town, and those are very small in number. Most of the people are just quietly saying goodbye to them. As soon as Emil and Katrina get out, the cheers go up. And they're just loving it. This is the first time this town, since its mayor has been slain by the Pale Tower, finally feels free. And these heroes are the ones that did it. Now, normally in the writing of this, the people are cautious and just really fearful of outsiders. Now the party is like family to them. They are the biggest heroes in the world, especially when they find out what happened. Oh my gosh, now it's just celebration. And so the Baba, the party goes out that day, and they meet with the priest of Pharasma, and they ask him for some special items. He isn't able to give everything to the players, but he says, you know what, you're going to be against witches in this realm, and we really need heroes like you. He brings out a box, and he gives them for free the hex nails. Hex nails basically give you a +2 save to anything that a witch or fae tries to cast on you. So it can be any type of spell, hex, or otherwise. He's giving this to them free. Now, normally they'd have to buy these things or pry it out of him. Why is he so helpful? Again, this comes back to the characters in the town. They have saved his town. Now he can shepherd his flock for Pharasma. Now they have a reason to celebrate in this town. It's not a huge celebration, but it's hope. The party, smart moves by Orin the cleric of Sarenrae. He doesn't just take it for free. He goes, how much do these normally cost, Rick? This is the player. And so Paul's asking, how much do they do? And I say, well, it's normally this. He goes, you know what? Myself and the war priest who's with me, who Scott's playing, are going to leave a donation anyways for this. Major points of diplomacy. They don't even, I think, calculate in the mind what they're doing to this town. This town is becoming their safe haven in this whole winter realm of madness. It was never planned to be that, but the party has done the right things. They are role-playing this beautifully. And so, they made a friend in the priest of Sarenrae. What if they need healing? What if they need something special done? He's going to do it for them. So now, the party gathers the rest of the supplies. They gather the jars for the white lightning and all the things they're going to need to make these Molotov cocktails. So next, what do? They go back to Baba's, and they're going to make these things that night. So they're making the Molotov cocktails, planning out for the tower. The next morning they wake up. There's porridge, there's special things, there's milk, there's all these. Where did all this food come from? The town. The town is rewarding them with their special things from the stores. So now the party's going out fully fed, ready to go, happy, and ready to just take it on. So this goes into the things of great role play. Reward your characters. Let them take the story away it doesn't go. And you know what? Give them some things. I'm not saying give away the farm. You don't have to give them expensive items. Little things that will make a difference in whether that party survives or not. Where are the party going to flee if something goes wrong? Well, normally this town wouldn't help them. Now this town would hide them to the last person because they went out of their way to save them from a major evil. So now the party's marching out with pats on the back and ready to go to the Pale Tower. So they start out. They come upon a random encounter of 4 Yeti. Oh my gosh, this goes fun. I've got a dice that you can roll that tells where you hit with your blows to the body. So they go into this combat sequence, and I say all this to say the party does a great job overall. Now, I've got one of my players, and I love Rothar, I like Bryant. They're good guys. I mean, the player and the character. He gets, slowly but surely, his rolls don't go his way, and he gets basically knocked to the ground, -13, which is almost past his constitution. He is dying, while the paladin, or while the Aasimar, is doing these wicked blows from above and just doing massive damage, and I'm letting him call his shots of what he's doing to these guys. So there's a choice between Peenbin saving the paladin by doing a heal check or shooting the monster. Well, he thinks, I don't want to lose any more friends. I know I'm going to lose this guy. He takes the shot and hits the monster. So slowly but surely, Rothar's going away, and I can see it in Brian's face. He is just miserable about coming today because his guy isn't doing anything. And he has a storyline, and his storyline is his paladin is a paladin of Cayden Cailean. Well, if you know anything about the god, not the greatest god for paladins because he's chaotic good. Well, okay, how does a lawful good paladin play that? Well, I give him a little bit of latitude. He's still lawful good, but he's got that ability to be a little bit more creative and chaotic because of his god. So I said, okay, you drift off, Rothar, and you die. But you're not gone. You find yourself sitting, looking at a man sitting at a bar having a drink. He's got the red hair. He's sitting in leather armor. He's got a rapier on his side. And he turns to him and says, Boyo, you didn't have a very good day there, did you? He says, I've had those kind of days too back when I was an adventurer, before I became what I became. It dawns on Brian. Who is he sitting in front of? Caden Kayleen. Now, did I have to do this as a GM? No, but I made a roll. And I said, okay, this is the percentage his God's going to look down at him and see what he was trying to do in all his efforts. And I made the roll. So I'm playing it out. He says, you know, boyo, life is full of ups and downs, and you're going to have them. He says, here, have a drink with me. And so he pours him, he has the bartender at this imaginary bar pour him a drink. He says, you know, sometimes you just need to have a drink and sit back and take life in perspective. He says, lad, it's not your time to go, I think. I think you have a little bit more in you, especially in this realm that needs a freeing. And he says, I think you will be the one who helps free them. He says, at least that's my hope. He says, why don't you have a little drink with me and try to just relax and see where this all goes. So he has a drink. Well, all of a sudden, this drink gives him back 13 hit points. At the same time, Orin the cleric, being that he's doing his storyline, he's not going to let his friend die, even if he knows there's no odds that his channeling can do anything. He's still doing it anyways. Save the party and save this paladin. Mind you, had it been reversed 1 point or 2 points in the roll, this never happens, and Orin saves the paladin. So what happens, I said, is the same time as he takes the drink and gets his healing, Orin's healing him. So up he pops, or 1 hit point. So I said, you sit up, to the surprise of everyone. And of course, it did surprise everyone. Here's the paladin sitting up. I said, you're feeling a little tipsy, but you're feeling good right now. Basically, he's drunk. Not heavily drunk, just a little bit inebriated. And I give him the modifiers. And so slowly, instead of attacking everything, see, this is where you think your party is going to do something. I thought he's going to hack the Yeti that's sitting right next to him. No, he lets the Yeti go by to the NPC to deal with, because he's still getting his bearings. And he plays it out. He says, okay, I'm going to, and then next thing you know, the sprite gets hit with a massive hit to her arm. Now, she's lost 2 fingers before on her left hand. This NPC is now flying at -7 onto the paladin. So the paladin could channel and heal himself. What does he do with his laying hands? He lays them on Remily to help stabilize her. So then he gently tosses her up to the Nadia who's injured, who Damien, in his infinite wisdom and roleplay, decided, I'm not going to let this woman I like very much and who's the love interest of mine die. So he levitates her up. And so she's levitating in the air above the Yeti to where he can't possibly hurt her. So now he's tossing Remily up there to be safe and get healed some more when the channeling happens again next round by Orin the cleric, Sarenrae. So then the paladin sits there, he gets the channeling, and then he goes after the channeling. He says, I grab my sword and I go for the Yeti. And he does enough to hit with a 19, his best roll of the day. Mind you, Lothar has had bad rolls all day long. That's why Brian's not happy. But now he finally gets, and I said, Brian, why don't you tell me what you do? He says, I chop off the toes. So I roll the area of the body where it would hit, and it was chest. So I'm thinking, how do you do that? Couldn't you just go through the back of it? He goes, no. The Yeti falls over into the chest first, into my sword. I said, epic. And so, then the war priest, Kal-El, gets his go. And so the round before, he was too far away from the last Yeti, which is entangled, thanks to the sorcerer. Now, how do you get things entangled in the Winter Realm? Well, because there's plants that are dormant, even through all the frost and the cold down there. So up it came. Up he's got him secured. And so the war priest does the run, and then he's got this ability to fly, because it's part of one of the abilities he took for his Aasimar. So I said, okay, why don't you do this? Gave him a little bit of hint. Now again, he's going to kill off my creature. And there's no reason to be a sour grapes GM and say, you're killing my bad guys. No, this is an epic day for me. So I'm like, why don't you run and then jump up in the air so he can't hit you? And then next round you can come down. Well, Scott was mulling this and going, I don't know. He goes, you know what? Yeah, that's my only option. I'm doing it. Next round he comes down. I roll. It's a hand, left hand. So I'm thinking, okay, how's he going to do this? He does enough to kill the creature. So in the mode of happiness, Paul and Oren and Max and Payne then goes, well, of course, he threw up his arm to protect himself from the blow from the paladin, which then cut through the arm and into his head. And I said, epic. And so I let them call their shots of how they kill the monster. This is the fun, GMs. And see, I forgot how much fun it is to let people tell you their story. So all this day, they've done things that are unexpected and unbelievably off track, but so on track for the story. So now they're ready for next session. We talked for 25 minutes afterwards, with the exception of Brian, which, Brian, if you're seeing this, I hope you know we love having you. The ending of how you did things was one of your best things for the whole day, and it was great. So don't take that, because the rest of the story that day didn't revolve around what was going on with Rothar, you put an exclamation point on the end of the day, along with Scott with his War Priest Aasimar Kal-El. So I'm saying all this for you GMs and writing this story out to say, let your party tell the story. Allow things to make your day. See, as a GM, yes, they beat my monsters. They foiled the bad guys. They did things that I totally would never have expected. But you know what? It was so freaking fun for me to run as a GM because it wasn't predictable. It wasn't A to B. It wasn't linear. It wasn't easy. But it took some great acting on all sides. And I wish I could have taped the session for you guys. That's why I was taking the detail to tell you. Because it was so great. If you were watching it, you would have loved it. Just because how much fun and laughter and fun everybody was having. That's the way a session should go. And not every session is going to be that for you. But that's where you should strive for. It takes a little bit of prep. It takes a lot of thinking outside the box. It takes a lot of restraint to let your players tell the story. And to not just say no to everything they want to do. There's times you got to say no. Okay, you're not going to give them every powerful magic item in the book. You're not going to let them do things. And that comes back to another thing the party did. They wanted to have some items magic. Well, in the realm of the Winter Witches, there aren't many sorcerers or wizards that are out in the open. Why? Because they are the biggest threat to the witches. So they have to do things underhandedly and maybe pay a little more. But the party didn't mind. They were happy about it because they wanted these items. So these shopkeepers in town went out of their way to send off messages to other places of people they knew, but maybe did it on the sly, that they wouldn't have told the party about. But because the party had did so much for the village, they were more than happy to help. So really, in all this, I'd say, let your players play. Let the story be the story, and you, the GM, enhance it and work with it. I hope you have a great session coming up or whatever you're running, and I hope you really enjoy it and let your players call some of the shots and really talk about how they defeat the situation and let them have that latitude, because I guarantee you will not regret it. Thanks, and I hope you have a great time. This is another session with GM Rick and GM Tips.